Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Could you please drop a plus in the chat box if you can hear me? All right. Okay. So yes, this is good news. Okay. All right. So I can see some pluses in the chat box. So well, I assume that you can hear me well. Thank you very much for joining us on Sunday for this session. We don't do this very often, but given the fact that teachers work all the time, I think this is one of the few options that we have right now, because well, most of us are teaching on Saturdays, including me. So yeah, Sundays are the day for some professional development now. All right, so I think we could get started and more people will join us later. All right, so well, it always takes me some time to get adjusted to Zoom when I'm presenting. Just it's very convenient for the participants, not so much. Sometimes there are some issues for the presenters. All right, so I think we're good now. All right, so to start with, my name is Diana Vasilenko, and I'm a CELTA trainer at International Language Center. I'm also the director of teacher training here. And I also a trainer for some other Cambridge courses, for example, CELTA, Certificate in English Language Teaching to secondary school students. And I'm also a Delta Modules 1 and 2 trainer. So today I would like to talk to you about CELTA, and actually it's slightly different from what we normally do, because I've already had several webinars on CELTA and to give more information about the course, how to apply for the course, what to expect during the interview, how to prepare for the course. But today I decided to kind of, for those people who are interested in CELTA and who are planning to take this course or considering taking this course in the future, I decided to give them like a glimpse of CELTA to show some of the techniques you'll be learning and practicing, or practicing if you are a very experienced teacher who knows it all, during this course. So let's get started. Okay, so now, first of all, well, I've introduced myself. I'd like to know something about you as well. Could you please find the chat box? And in the chat box, here's, well, I'm pretty sure I know how to use Zoom now, because we've been doing this teaching online for, well, more than a year now. So could you please find the chat box and write the city you're from, the school, company, or university where you work, and the age of the students that you work with. I'm gonna give you a minute for this. So please write your answers in the chat box. Well, thank you for sharing your answers. All right, we can see some people from Odessa, Dnipro, Sumy. Right. Kharkiv. Two people from Kharkiv. This is great. 3 people from Kharkiv. Come on, people. Well, I'm from Kharkiv as well, so it's nice that people from Kharkiv are joining us today. I hope that you'll join us for some of the CELTA courses next year as well. Dnipro, all right. That's interesting. Good. Okay. So thank you for sharing your answers. Zhytomyr, okay, so it's closer to Kiev. Okay, so thank you very much for sharing your answers. And let me tell you about what's going to happen next. So today, I'm going to tell you about what CELTA is. Oh, right, there are people from Ternopil as well. I really thought it was the eastern parts of the country. Not only, that's great. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about what CELTA is. Course requirements, the available course formats, but that's going to happen closer to the end of the session. And then we're actually going to have a bit more of a workshop where we will talk about presenting your language on the CELTA course. We will look at some techniques that are used and checking understanding of the new language that we present, checking understanding of the students of the new language that we teach them during the lessons. And then if you have any questions about the techniques that we discussed today or the course, I'll be happy to answer them. So if you want to, you can write them in the chat box as we're progressing through this workshop. I do need to warn you that I will ask you to participate in it because this is a workshop, not only a webinar. So I'll be asking you to write your answers in the chat box quite a lot during this session. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to do most of the talking at the beginning, and then there will be more for you to do. So the CELTA course, or Cambridge CELTA, this is the certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages. It used to be teaching English to adults only, but it's actually not anymore. So there could be some practical ideas there, not only for people who work with adults, but people who work with younger learners, not very young, but still younger learners. The main principles are still there. So CELTA is a pre-service course. It is highly recognized around the world, which makes it a very good qualification to have. It provides the candidate, it offers a very good combination, I would say a perfect combination of theory and practice. You know, so sometimes when I was talking to people who for some reason decided not to take CELTA, one of the reasons behind that was the fact that the course is very theoretical, but it isn't. It really isn't, you know, so that's one of those myths about CELTA that I would really like to debunk now. It is assessed by a Cambridge representative. So that means that the course is standardized and every CELTA course has to be delivered in compliance with the Cambridge rules. And the assessor will check if the center follows those rules or not. And we are also proud to say that what makes CELTA different from the other courses in English language teaching is the rigorous selection and training of CELTA trainers and tutors, because it's not very easy to become a CELTA trainer. So you have to have the right qualification and you have to be nominated by Cambridge, basically, to become a CELTA trainer, and then you really have to get more training for this. It's not like I decided to become a CELTA trainer, so I decided to read a book about it and then start working on the CELTA courses. No, it's a bit more complicated than that. All right, so here I'd like you to participate a little bit. So here are the requirements for the candidates who want to take the CELTA course. One of them is not correct. could you please write in the chat box the number for the requirement, which is not actually a requirement for the CELTA course? I can see some answers. Gonna give you a bit more time. Right, so I can see 3, I can see 2, 2, and 3 again, and 2. So at the moment, I would say like 40% believe that 3 is not true, and 60% you believe that 2 is not true. Well, I have big news for you. Number 4 is not true, actually. So it is true that the candidate has to be at least 18 years of age, and which kind of makes sense because we're talking about teachers here and there will be teaching practice. So there will be other people that this person has to teach during the course. And it could be a bit challenging for, well, teenagers, let's put it this way, but for younger people could be a bit challenging. You need to be high school graduate and ready to start a university degree. That is actually true, because in the UK, CELTA is a level 5 qualification, which means that this is almost an equivalent of a specialist degree. So you do not need to have a bachelor's or master's in order to start CELTA. Just a high school diploma is enough. C1 is definitely true. And it is very helpful if the candidate has that. But the good news is, and people often ask this question, you do not need to have a certificate to show that your level of English is C1. So there is no official paper that is required for this, but because during the interview and selection process, the trainers will be able to understand if your language is good enough for this course or not. And most importantly, this is a pre-service course, so prior teaching experience is not prerequisites for this. So you just need to have the potential and the desire to develop the necessary skills in teaching. And again, I want to emphasize the skills because this is a practical course, not a theoretical one. All right, to get your certificate, this is a bit more about what's happening on the course. So to get your certificate, you will need to complete 120 contact hours, which includes teaching practice, input sessions, guided lesson planning, and teaching practice feedback, because you'll be teaching during the course. 6 hours of teaching practice assessed by Cambridge verified trainer. 6 hours of observations of experienced teachers, CELTA qualified teachers, successfully pass at least 3 out of 4 written assignments, and spend at least 80 hours preparing lessons and writing the assignments that you have to submit during the course. This means that the total number of hours is 200, and it is written on the Cambridge certificate, not the front page, but the back of it. But this information is there, which is very valuable and very helpful, especially for teachers in Ukraine right now, because this is a certificate which is recognized by the Ministry of Education of Ukraine. Also, anyone who's considering doing the course, whether you take it part-time or full-time, please remember about the 40 hours that you will need to spend basically doing your homework. So if we talk about full-time course, that means that there will be at least 20 hours of homework that you will need to do. If we talk about the part-time course, for example, a 13-week course, that means that you need to prepare to spend a bit more, well, around 6 hours doing your homework during the week. So it's important for planning, for your planning. All right, so the course is continuously assessed. The candidates are assessed based on the portfolio of the lessons that you teach. Normally at our center, we teach 8 lessons. Each of them is 45 minutes long. And on those assignments, written assignments that you need to submit. So the possible grades for the course are pass. About 60% of the candidates get that. A bit higher is the pass B, I would say well, like 20% of the sorry, of the candidates worldwide get this grade. Thus A is quite rare, about, well, less than 10% probably, and the fail grade. Unfortunately, it does exist. So if you are enrolled in CELTA course, you still need to work hard, because it doesn't mean that you will get your certificate automatically. You do need to work hard during the course, because there is quite a lot to learn. And yeah, but the good thing is, and this is very true of our center. So one of the reasons I like working for this center is because we treat the selection process very seriously. And we do accept the candidates we do not accept candidates who are likely to fail, right? Not because, well, we do not want to work with them, we do, but because if it is possible that the person can fail the course, that's quite an expensive course to take, to get the fail grade for it. So I personally feel that it is fair to tell people what they need to do to be able to prepare for the course a bit better, in order to have a higher chance of passing it when they decide to take it. The grades are discussed and agreed upon with the Cambridge assessor, the person who checks the course closer to the end of it. All right, so now let's take a look inside the CELTA course. And, well, seriously, what I'm going to talk today is like 2% of what you're going to learn during the course, or, well, definitely less than 5. But I decided that it's fair to give people the chance to experience some of the techniques that we teach or practice during the course. All right, so now I'd like you to use the chat box again and answer these questions. So what was the last grammar or vocabulary lesson that you taught? You can write the answer in the chat box. So here's my example. Here's my answer. Please share, what was the last lesson that you taught? But again, grammar or vocabulary. Conditionals. I hope people love conditionals. Degrees of comparison. Well, that's an interesting topic. Sounds like a higher level one. Direct speech, vocabulary. What sort of vocabulary, Victoria? I get the feeling that Olga and Irina work for the same school because the topic is the same. All right. IT vocabulary, okay. Types of conditionals. All right, so school-related lexis and conditionals definitely win today. All right, well, thank you very much for sharing your answers with me. It's good to know that people are actually participating, that they're here. All right, so let's talk about this then. So what do you think? Is it better to teach from examples or from rules or explanations? If we talk about vocabulary and grammar, please write your answers in the chat box. All right, I can see that most of you agree, thank you, that in most cases, in most situations, it's better to use from examples. It is possible to work with the rules sometimes, but probably for revision activities when they're for more complex grammar points, for example, revision of all future forms. So I'll be honest with you, this is when I kind of use I do resort to using rules sometimes, or for exam preparation classes, because again, mostly there is some revision there. But on the CELTA course, we try to teach not so much the rules. We do not kind of explain the rule and get people to get our students to remember the rule and start using the rule, we actually teach the language from examples, and we help them to understand how the language is used in some situations. There are some reasons for that. So one of them is that the use of language in context and examples shows that shows the need for the language and is motivating for the learner. So they can see that this is the language that is used in real world, in text, for example, or in spoken speech. You know, that sort of shows that, yeah, people use that language, so maybe I need to learn that as well. If the learners are asked to work out the rules based on examples, they are cognitively engaged in the learning process. So they are more motivated, they take responsibility for their learning, and that encourages them to actually participate actively in the lessons. So this is good. The meanings discovered by learners are more meaningful, memorable, and easy for them to use in the future. So if they kind of take the example, work out the rule, while being cognitively engaged, that helps them to actually make this language their own, which will encourage them to use it in the future. Being actively involved in the learning process requires higher levels of attention and is more motivating. So again, and when learning new words, if we talk about teaching vocabulary and only grammar, we need to remember that there is no one-to-one correspondence between the word in a foreign language and the learner's L1. So this means that actually using translation or only definitions is, translation is not a very good idea, so they need to see how the word works in a sentence to be better able to understand how it works and what it means. And let's have some practice. So here's the task. If this wasn't a webinar, but a real workshop, of course, I would ask you to work and discuss these questions in pairs. I don't expect you to be that willing to participate that much and talk to other people on Sundays. So let's make it a bit easier. How would you help your learners, your students, to understand the meaning of these words? And here you have some ideas to help you. Using realia, like real objects, drawings or pictures, mime and gesture, definition, mini story or anecdote to kind of create like a text to create the context for the language, and decline or scale, where you can show like how big or small something is. All right, so I'd like you to take 2 minutes now. Make notes, like which word would you use with, which technique would you use to help the learners understand what this word means? For example, the situation is the student raised their hands and says, okay, what does the word nurse mean? So how would you answer that question? How would you help them understand the meaning of the word? Now you have 2 minutes. When you're ready, please drop a plus in the chat box. I can see some answers. So this is more of a matching activity. So you need to match the number and technique to the word. For example, a nurse, it would be helpful to use a drawing for that. So to a nurse. So Daria has finished. You can see some answers. All right, Valeria, thank you for such a detailed answer. Okay. All right, so actually, well, thank you very much for your answers. Very good. Here are my answers, but again, it doesn't mean that this is the only way to do that. Let's have a look at them. So this would be this is an example of a client for the word average, right? So average is number 6. So bad, good, and average is in the middle. So that would help to convey the meaning. All right, and here are my answers. They're quite close to yours. Have a look at them. You can take a screenshot if you want to. But again, for pencil, you could use Realia or drawing if you don't have one in the classroom. Or again, so if we talk about teaching English online, you know, it's, well, of course, you can take a pencil from your desk and show it to the students, or sometimes, well, the Realia will be substituted with photos of real objects as well. It's easier to do it online now. Mime and gesture for walking. Yes. Friend, a definition, or possibly a story. Scared, story is quite good. Definition is also possible, or I saw that some people wrote picture for that. So yeah, so you can show a picture of a person who looks scared and like, how do you think they feel, to try and elicit this word from the students. Very good. Well, thank you very much for your answers. Now, here's some more practice, right? So on the left, you can see the words. On the right, you can see the teaching techniques. Can you match the techniques to the words again? Okay, 2 minutes and write your answers in the chat box. We can hear someone. Someone's not muted. When you have finished, please put a plus in the chat box. Is anyone ready? All right, so 30 more seconds and we'll check the answers. Okay, Victoria, thank you for sharing. Very good. All right. Thank you, Natalia. Tatiana, thank you. All right, good. By the way, Tatiana mentioned that it is also possible to mime scared, and of course I do agree with you. So that's a good idea as well. So see, there is no one correct way. There are several options that you can use, and it's good that during the CELTA course we discuss that and find the best ones for that particular situation. Right. So thank you very much for your answers. Here are my suggestions as well. No, so it doesn't mean that this is the only option, but this is definitely one of the options we have. All right, take a moment to to compare your answers. Okay, so let's move on. So we've been talking about learning vocabulary. Do you think it's actually possible to use the same techniques or all of these techniques to teach grammar, right? So could you please write all in the chat box? Or just the numbers of the techniques that you feel are possible to use when teaching new grammar to the students and helping them to present it. While people are writing their answers, there is a question from Tatiana. How about hope? It's a good one, and I would say that I would either use a definition, a story, or a picture. You can actually try and show that with a picture, right? So this is what I want to happen, and I hope that this will happen in the future. So like this kind of thought bubble. But yes, you would definitely, yeah, so elements of a definition would be helpful there. Okay, so I can see some answers. So people think that mini story is possible and scale and climb. Yes, definitely. For some of the language, you'll definitely see that later in a couple of slides. So reality is not a point. Oh, Tatiana, then I'm so sorry that I removed I was editing this presentation and actually, well, my answer is that all of them are possible. And Tatiana made a good point about using realia for grammar presentation, but actually it is, especially realia could be, well, we'll see that a bit later. My example was actually showing some objects that belong to a person and asking people to guess some information about the person. And this is how I would elicit present simple from them. So this is reality. If we talk about teaching online, I would probably show them pictures of some things that my friend has, you know, and I would try to get them to elicit something, to tell me some facts about my friend, for example. Like car keys, you know, so she has a car, or sports club membership card, you know, she does sport things, you know, so it is possible to use reality. So the answer is, well, yes, Tatiana, very good point, absolutely. And this is, we're going to move on and you will see the, for passive, yes, good. All right, now, thank you very much. Here's my short demo. So this is my friend Bob in the year 2009, more than 10 years ago. So imagine that this is 2009. So Bob is a successful businessman. He's very rich, filthy rich. He has a beautiful wife. He has a private jet. He travels a lot. Yes, in 2009, that was still possible. Yeah. And this is my friend Bob now. So do you think he still has all those things? So right now I can tell you about Bob that he used to be a successful businessman. He used to be very rich. He used to have a beautiful wife, used to have private jet, and he used to travel a lot. Well, that's true of all of us. We all used to travel a lot. Right, so this is how you can actually use pictures to elicit some language. So give them sentences first in the present simple and tell them about now. And I actually said all those sentences to you, but you can elicit the structure and it helps them to understand the meaning. So this is something that was true in the past, but is no longer true. Using pictures for grammar. All right, so which of these techniques did I use? Already answered that question. So drawing our picture could be a mini story as well, by the way. So here's another question for you, right? On the left, you can see some grammar points that we often teach. Sorry, I forgot to include conditionals. I will definitely change my presentation for the next time I have to do it. And I'd like you to have a look at the grammar points that we often teach on the left and match them to the techniques that we discussed earlier today. In the chat box, you can just write the number like 1A, 2C, whatever. Well, my example doesn't mean that is correct. That was an example of how to write your answer. Okay, so take 2 minutes and write the answers in the chat box. I can see some of the answers. So quantifiers for with drawings and pictures. That is actually possible if we talk about lower levels. So that could be a good idea when these are the only words to teach, like many, none, a few. So it is possible. Hmm. Mm-hmm. I can see some good ideas there. So definitely something to talk about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just very good. And well, thank you. So here are my answers, but again, it doesn't mean that this is the only correct answer. So I would use realit to teach possessive pronouns, like whose is it? It's mine, his, yours. So you can actually collect things from the people and you teach like whose is it? It's his, it's hers. For drawings and pictures, modal verbs must and mustn't. My favorite example, and it's very helpful and also works with kids, would actually be using signs. You mustn't, I just want to say mustn't smoke in here, so but it's not a very good sign to use with kids. So mustn't walk on the grass, you must wash your hands. So pictures would be very helpful for that. Imperatives, mime and gestures, and this is something that I saw here. Future forms, going to present continuous, I would use definitions again, especially we're revising different future forms, and you can match the sentences to different uses. Let's put it this way, meanings of the future forms. For the causatives, a mini story, and this is something I saw in your answers. So thank you very much for agreeing with me. I really like when people do. And quantifier, scale, or climb. Okay, I can hear someone again. Someone wants to participate with me. All right. I also wanted to mention that actually, I saw that in your answers. So using the scale or climb could also be used for teaching well, we talked about quantifiers. Must and mustn't. I would probably use it for using must and can't when we talk about modals of deduction. Because this is the opposite of can't. So must, I'm 100% sure, and can't, it can't be Sean. So I'm 0% sure that this is Sean, meaning that I'm sure that's not him. And this is where you could actually add like might, could, and may. So that's also possible. Right, so thank you very much. So as we have only 20 minutes left, let's move on to the next part of the presentation. So how can you check? So this is, that was the presentation stage. We talked about how we would convey the meaning and help learners understand what the word means or what this grammar structure means and when it's possible to use it and what for. But how do we check that they actually got it, that they understood when to use this word or when to use that grammar? How do you know that your learners got it? Please write your answers in the chat box. Right, so talk to them. All right. Yes, so you can check, you can actually use another technique that we talked about, so where match the words with the pictures. So another, like a test, basically, or an exercise, good. When they speak without mistakes, that's a good point. So tell as well. Test speaking, good. All right, or talk to them. I like this talk to them, but when you say talk to them, you can also kind of, like, if that means like, do you understand? Probably their answer will be yes, of course, and that doesn't mean much sometimes with some learners. All right, so all good answers. Thank you so much for participating today. So here are some of my ideas. So mistakes or no mistakes in the exercises that you give them, those could be speaking exercises or writing exercises as well. Yes, so these are the ideas you mentioned. Or on the CELTA course, we use concept checking questions to help us understand whether they got the meaning of what we taught them or not. And this is what I'd like to talk about now. So here's an example, the word average. Sorry. What did you think of that film? And the answer is, I thought it was average. So let's have a look at the word average in this context. And if you look it up in a dictionary, you will find quite, well, not one definition of the word average. This is the definition that I chose because I feel that is appropriate in this case, in this situation. So standard level, that is considered to be typical or usual. This is from Cambridge Dictionary Online. So we look at the definition and we break the meaning into short and simple concepts, which we think our learners should understand. Here's my example of how I would break this into concepts. Standard. People think it's typical or usual. So This is what I got from this definition. And here's the reason why I need to break it into the concepts, simply because the concepts will help me to make short questions to which the learners will answer, and I will get more understanding about what they got from what I taught them. Here's what I'm talking about. So here is the situation. Here are the concepts, and here are my questions. It's important that your CCQs are yes or no questions, not open-ended questions, because they need to be easy to answer to make sure that the learners answer them. And they need to give you enough information. And for that, an open-ended question could be a bit misleading, so first of all, it's difficult for the learner to answer. It doesn't mean, and you can get too much information actually, which is not always a good thing. Well, if it's too much, it's not. So have a look at my examples. So this is about the film. Do I think it was standard quality? Yeah, so it wasn't worse than that. Do I think it was better than other films? No. Did I like the film? Well, probably no. Or actually, it would be even better to ask, oh, this is what I'm going to change. Would I like to see it again? Probably not. I think that this is a better CCQ now. Right, so see, they're very easy to answer, but when you hear your learners' answers, you will understand if they got the meaning of this word or not. And here's my question. Is this really necessary to have this kind of these sentences? So with the word being used, what do you think? So this dialogue. What did you think of that film? That was average. Do you think it's necessary, or we can just give them the word and talk to them about the word? Yeah, a simple yes or no would be helpful here. All right, so the answer is yes, because giving words, well, teaching words, yes, thank you, Irina, for agreeing with me. Teaching words in isolation is basically impossible because, again, the sentences create more context and context to some extent for the language. So it's good to give it in a dialogue or in some situation to help people understand the meaning of the word, because the context helps to understand the meaning, right? So let's have some practice. No, first, some rules for making your CCQs. So the CCQs must be yes or no questions or alternative questions when you give them alternatives to choose from. Is it good or bad? Did it happen before or after? Was it sweet or sour? Which is another option. Well, could be difficult for some for lower levels. It should contain the language which is not difficult for the learners. So make sure that the words that you use in your concept checking questions, CCQs, is simple for the learners, because they shouldn't be thinking hard about those CCQs. They need to think about the meaning of the word, not about the weird words that you use in the CCQs. They need to be based on the context. So do not teach the word in isolation. So when we're talking about the film, the CCQs were about the film. And switching context wouldn't be very helpful, as it would get your learners confused. Still use that situation. Address possible misconceptions of meaning. I'll give you another example of that. They must not be numerous. So asking them 10 CCQs for one word is not a good thing because it's likely to confuse them. Mustn't contain target language. So was the film average or not? That's not a good CCQ because They look at the sentence and they can see that the word was average. So the answer is yes. It doesn't mean that they got it. They must not be personalized. And because the CCQs must check the meaning of the people, or well, of the word, not whether this happened to a person, because they can answer yes or no, but you don't know if it's true for them or not, because you don't know them that well. If it's something very obvious, of course, you could make it personalized. So like, do you think you would like to see this film? So that could be personal, but this is as far as it can go. So in general, I wouldn't ask personalized questions to check the learner's understanding, because there should be one correct answer to this question. And they shouldn't be very long. Again, we do not want to confuse the students. We just want to check whether they got it or not. All right, so here's some more practice. Right now, we're not talking about concept checking questions. So here's a word. What did you guys do last night? Well, we just went out with some friends. Went out, go out. This is what we're interested in, right? So the definition is to leave a room or building, especially in order to do something for entertainment. Could you please write in the chat box the concepts, like short, easy statements for this word? So let's break it into, please write the parts of the meaning of go out in the chat box. 1 minute. The definition is there, so it should be easier. Yes, I understand. So writing on Sunday is not something that many people like. All right, so so let's check the answers now. So here's what, okay. Talia, thank you. Spend time well with friends. Okay, that's one of them. Good. Could be with friends, but could be without friends, actually, because in the meeting, it doesn't say that you need other people for that. I can go out on my own. I can go to the movies, actually. So that would be go out as well. But the first part is definitely correct. So thank you. All right, so here are my, went for a walk. Oh, okay. So in that case, it's in our situation, it's went out, with some friends, but with some friends, it's kind of around the word. It's not the meaning of the word. Okay, so thank you, ladies. Here are the concepts, the very basic parts of the meaning. To leave the room or building, so not stay where you are, and to have fun. Well, because you want to have fun. Right, so can you write the simple CCQs, like yes or no questions, for the word go out? Show them all. All right, so use these concepts to write the yes or no questions. Can I give you 1 minute for that? You don't have to share them with us if you don't want to, but for practice, you can just jot them down on a piece of paper and then I'll show you mine. All right, so here, your place actually going out or not? Would you like to have some fun today? Okay, but remember that good questions, but remember that they should be based on the context of this situation, on the situation that you can see in the example. Would you like to have some fun today? Good. So here are my CCQs. So what did you guys do last night? So we're talking about what some people did last night. So did they stay at home? No. Did they want to have a good time? Yes. When they went out, did they spend time outside? Not necessarily, because this is one of the tricks with the go out. You know, people often think that it's out means outside. Yeah, so that is one of the possible problems with the meaning. So here's the context. Here are my CCQs. And so here's my checklist. Yes or no questions or alternatives? Yes. No target language there, no difficult language there, based on the context and addressing possible misconception of the meaning. So when they went out, did they spend time outside? So, and I'll be honest with you, this is something that a lot of candidates struggle with. This is not an easy thing to do. And this is one of the things we're practicing throughout the course. And it feels very good when you finally get there. All right, so if we talk about grammar, we could use pretty much the same thing. So Bob used to be a successful businessman. Remember my presentation. And here you can see the definition or the meaning that I took from a grammar book. This one comes from Murphy's English Grammar in Use. So we use used to for things that were true but are not true anymore. So my concepts for that would be, it was true in the past. It's not true now, no question mark there. And if we talk about the concept checking questions, yeah, do you have to change that? So if we talk about the concept checking questions, they're quite simple, but it's important to remember that this is not true now. Right. Was he a successful businessman in the past? Yes. Is he a successful businessman now? I should not talk outside. No. All right. And one last thing we're going to practice today. We're running a bit out of time, but I hope that you ladies will stay with me today. So please write your answers in the chat box. And this is actually a demonstration of what you can do with your students if you're teaching online. So what do you think this lady is saying to the gentleman? Could you please write like a phrase or something, or the topic they could be discussing? Anecdote, okay, yes, definitely they're laughing. Yeah, their ideas. So she could be telling a joke. Also there, funny story, yes. Okay, good. All right. Okay, and if we talk about the exact words she's saying, so you were plans for their having fun at some resort. Yes, thank you, Valeria, because they are on a plane. So probably they're going on holiday or somewhere fun. So, and here's what she's saying. Valeria was close. This time tomorrow, we'll be lying on the beach. And they're very happy about it. I'd be as well. So here's the meaning that I found in How English Works by Michael Swan. Use the future progressive to say that something will be going on at a certain time in the future. There is one problem with the statement that this explanation is actually using the target language will be going. Yes, so we cannot use that for the CCQs. And here are the concepts. It's about an action in progress in the future at a specific time. So this is one of the uses of the future progressive or future continuous tense. Right. So here are the concepts and the CCQs. Because we are running out of time, I'll show you mine. So here's the concept. It's about an action in progress. So this translates into number 2. It's about the finished action, because finished is kind of the opposite of continuing or an action in progress. So the CCQ1 is about the future or the present. Good to check what we're talking about, which time. It's about the finished action. No. Does she say when this will happen? Yes. And the CCQ3 helps us to actually check if they understand that this is a specific time that we're talking about and an action will be happening then. Right? So this is something that would help our learners understand and help us understand whether they got how the future continuous is used in that context. So this is all from me, almost all. Yes, so here's some of the useful resources that you could use for analyzing vocabulary and grammar. The good thing about the dictionaries is that a lot of them are available online, and quite often you have enough online to help you to work with. But there is still the bad thing about dictionaries online is that not all of them are reliable sources of information. So here are the ones that I would recommend. And it's also important to remember that they're learners' dictionaries. Because the ones which are written for native speakers will be too difficult for the learners to understand. And for grammar, here are some of the books that we normally recommend during the CELTA course. If you have any questions, you can ask me now. You can start writing them in the chat box. There are 2 more important things we're going to talk about. So I'm going to tell you some information about the available course formats. And I will also give you the link to the certificate that you can download for attending this webinar. So if you have questions, please write them in the chat box. That could be about teaching grammar or vocabulary. You could ask questions about the CELTA course as well. Right, so right now there are 3 recognized formats that are available and which are legal. This is CELTA Online, which is done 100% online with the input done online and with the teaching practice done online. So if you teach lessons online, that would be a very good course to take. The CELTA face-to-face, the same thing, but everything is basically happening in physical classroom. This is the oldest version of the CELTA course that we've had for years now, right? And most importantly, and this is the option that I find really exciting, and my so Diana, this is where I'm getting at. So right now I'm working on an online course. So this is the reason why we're doing this on Sunday, because on Saturdays I have CELTA. I'm working on a completely online CELTA course right now, but it is kind of funny that the candidates are from other countries, and Ukraine as well, not only from Ukraine, I mean the candidates of that course are also from other countries. So, and I mentioned this to them, and they kind of like this option because the third option that we have is the mixed mode course. And this is the CELTA course I would choose if I could do it all over again, because given the fact that most of the teaching is happening online and face-to-face right now. So yes, of course, we have some groups online, some groups face-to-face, but even with the face-to-face groups, we have to move online sometimes and then go back to face-to-face. And I'd like to feel comfortable with both modes, so if anything like COVID happens now or again in 5 or 10 years time, I'd like to be prepared for that. So, and this is what the mixed mode is for. Of course, I understand that the course that we're planning to deliver we're planning to start our first mixed modes in January 2022. And we had to ask for the special permission from Cambridge to do that. So this course is allowed, but still you need to submit the timetable and make sure that, and the timetable needs to be approved by Cambridge. So this CELTA course will start on the 22nd of January. The format is online via Zoom and face-to-face. This course is best for those people who are based in Kiev. I can see that a lot of you are not from Kiev, so I hope that we'll be doing the same thing in summertime. So you'll be able to come here for only 2 weeks, not 4 weeks, as you normally would with the CELTA course. And this is actually the first course, part-time mixed mode CELTA, that we're planning to run in Ukraine. So it's not, well, no one has run a part-time course in both modes so far. So I'm really excited about that. And that means that during the first half of the course, you will be teaching online. And after the first 7 weeks, you will switch to a different mode, meaning face-to-face, or the other way around. So we will start teaching practice with one mode, and after the first 7 weeks of the course, you will start teaching another group in a different mode. You always work with at least 2 groups on CELTA courses, but this time there will be one of the groups will be working online, and the other one will be working face-to-face. Sorry, I've been talking for too long now. So, and the input will be done online and face-to-face as well. So one of the tutors will be from Ukraine and the other one will be from another country. So this way you get exposure to some people who are not available locally as well. Right, so here's some information about our new project. This is what we're going to run on we're gonna start this course on the 21st of January 2021, and that is a 13-week-long course. If you're not in Kiev, you can still take our CELTA online course, which has the same dates, but it is completely online. So we're planning to run 2 courses. Starting in January, one of them will be the mixed mode CELTA, the other one will be online. So the online option is still there, right? And yes, so if you have any, here's the link to the certificates, right? I'm going to copy the link and paste it in the chat box for your convenience now. So you can see the link in the chat box, or you can see it here. This is the link to the certificates. You need to download it and add your name to the certificate. So thank you very much for attending the webinar today, for taking your time on Sunday. I wish you a very nice and relaxing Sunday, because we do need to recharge our batteries for the next week. If you have any questions, well, if you're interested in our teacher training, so you can join, well, here's our website where you can actually fill in the application form for the CELTA course, and the Facebook page where you can follow us and get all the latest news from our center. And if you have any questions, you can also find me, and here's my email if you. My email is in the chat box. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll be happy to hear from you. Right, so once again, thank you very much for your time and for your active participation during the webinar. It was very nice to work with you today, right? And well, hope to see you on our CELTA courses in the future or any other courses. Thank you and goodbye. There is a nice question, actually, no goodbye. There's one more question. Vitalia, will CELTA course be useful for lectures at university? Well, for lectures, it won't be very useful, but if you teach students, if you teach English, not about English, you know, that is a fantastic course to take, because the lecture is the opposite of what is happening on the CELTA course, right? So if you want to give lectures about CELTA, that could be useful. But in terms of teaching techniques, this is what we teach. We kind of teach more practical how to work, how to teach language, and the interaction and communication with the students is key to that. Right, well, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please get in touch and we'll have a lovely Sunday. Bye.